many thanks. Well, here with me at the Gherkin is Simon Morn from the brokers MF Global. Alongside him is Mark Littlewood, Director of the Institute of Economic Affairs. Gents, thanks for coming in. Nice to see you both. Mark, these banks, they'll scream and shout, but it's an extra £800 million, a drop in the bucket. They've got away with blue murder.
I'm not going to say this is going to cause a catastrophe, but it is, and listening to your report from Adam Bolton, I think a particularly unhelpful exercise in political machismo, basically. It's unlikely that banks will start fleeing the City of London in reaction to this, but we're getting incredibly mixed messages from the government. On the one hand, the whole story this year is supposed to be about economic growth, and then you get an announcement like this. We've got to look at nursing the city back to health. This is a step in the wrong direction. £800 million is actually a small step. It sounds colossal, but it is an unhelpful step. It doesn't help the mood music. And remember, Jeff, this was supposed to be a bank levy, which was, if you like, some form of insurance to tuck money away in case there was a catastrophe again in future. Far from it. This is just a sin tax, which is being poured into the general coffers of general taxation.
What do you think, Simon? The stock market took all this in its stride, didn't it? I looked tonight, the bank shares have gone up.
Yeah, it did, and that's because the 800 million is a relatively small amount of money. But more importantly than that, we knew the banks were going to have to pay 2.5 billion sterling from next year. Now they're going to pay it the full amount 1 year earlier. It probably doesn't change the long-term valuation of the stocks very much at all. But what we have to be conscious of here is that this is going to become a political battleground. You can imagine in the run-up to the next general election, people like Ed Balls competing to be the most aggressive on where they're going to move the levy to, because one of the other features of today was Osborne made the levy permanent, but he didn't cap it at where it currently is.
It's amazing, isn't it? The stickability of taxes. They're supposed to be one-offs, and they rarely are. It's
if only they were stickable. They're usually elastic and go up.
It's as though we become addicted to them. What about the argument that, look, you know, we the taxpayer did these banks a huge favour, almost immeasurable in pounds, shillings, and pence in old money. It's their turn to pay us back. Come on, guys, don't be so mean-spirited. Just tip the money into the hat with a smile and say thank you very much.
Well, to some degree I can understand that, but when are we going to bring this chapter of history to a close? We've got to actually see the economy growing again, snow or no snow. When are we actually going to say that this particular chapter, unfortunate chapter in banking history, has come to a close and we've got to build it up again? Bear in mind, banking and financial services are one of, frankly, not very many industries that the United Kingdom is absolutely exceptional at. And I think what we've got to turn our attention to over the medium term is, of course, the Independent Banking Commission, the Vickers Commission. What we've got to look for in future is to make sure we find a way in which banks can fail in an orderly fashion. Yes. And then the whole issue of the bank levy and state bailouts is removed. That's not going to be easy to do, but that's really the holy grail. That's what we should be looking for as a long-term strategy. And sooner or later, we've got to bring this bank bashing to a close. It is not helping the city. It is sending the wrong sort of music to inward investors.
What about that point, Simon, I made to Mark Kleiman there, that we have two, in effect, state-owned banks here, RBS and Lloyds, and the government's breathing down their neck saying, you know, you mustn't pay bonuses. And then we've got the private enterprise banks, Barclays and the HSBC, paying what they like. Aren't we in danger of, in effect, turning those banks that we own into poor relations?
The biggest issue when I talk to shareholders and investors in banks, and particularly when you look at investment banks, is the fear that these things are run for the benefit of the staff rather than the shareholder. Yeah. And generally people would rather own miners or industrial companies, things benefiting from the weak pound and the pickup in exports, than they would rather own banks. But at some point, and this is the most important thing, forget the levy. If you want your money back from the banks, you've got to sell your stakes in Lloyds and in Royal Bank to the city. And the city won't buy it if you've destroyed the culture and the business of the bank by forcing all their top people to leave in the intervening period.
You know, they've got to make big profits, otherwise we'll never get our money back.
Well, absolutely right. And also, you know, there's an awful lot of commentary on it's not fair that people get paid when there are cuts going on. But the reality is the banks pay big taxes. We can spend more money out of taxation. If the banks are having a bad time, austerity is a necessity. It's not an option.
A grim message, but a true one nonetheless. Simon, Mark, many thanks for coming in. This is Jeff Randall.